again, and welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons. I'm your host. I'm glad you're joining me this week. For those who don't realize that these shows are not necessarily live, regardless of when you're watching it, I am taping this on Tuesday. So if you're seeing anything talking about Wednesday or whatnot, it is coming forward this week. Today is Tuesday the 13th. So, hot enough out there for you? Because, boy, I don't know about you, we went from cold, practically winter, to really, really hot, really, really quick. I hope everybody out there has air conditioning or someplace cool to get, some respite during these hot days. Rest assured, Mother Nature is going to trick us a little bit more. After tomorrow, Wednesday, the temperatures are going to drop back down into the 70s and back up into the 80s by the weekend. But these 90s will be gone after today, which in some ways I'm really glad for. Hot weather on the subject matter coming up this weekend, the 17th, the weekend of the 17th, 18th, is the Hampton Beach Sand Sculpture Contest. If you've never been, what they do is they have sculptors from all over the country and Canada. They come and they sculpt these amazing sand sculptures right there on the beach, and they'll be working on those on, I think, Thursday and Friday, and then on Saturday night they announce the winners, and but they're on display all weekend, and it's a great, if you're thinking about getting out to the beach or you don't have something to do this weekend and you want to get outside and enjoy the nice, comfortable weather, take a ride on over to Hampton Beach and check out the sand sculptures. It'll be worth your time. It's a great thing. And, Hampton Beach, for a state that has such a small little coastline, we actually have some pretty good beach over there. So take a ride over to Hampton and enjoy yourself and get out in the sunshine and the fresh air. I also wanted to make a reminder that currently now and through the weekend is Laconia Bike Week, which means there are more motorcyclers on the highways and on the city streets than normal. So please keep an extra eye out. Make sure you check your rear view mirrors and your side mirrors before you're changing lanes, so that you don't inadvertently end up in an accident with a motorcyclist. They're sometimes hard to see, and we don't want to see anybody get hurt. I saw an interesting thing in Katie McQuaid's article in the Union Leader today. Tomorrow's Flag Day. June 14th is Flag Day. And I don't know how many of you have ever seen it, but there's a picture from the Amoskeag Mills, this huge flag on the mill with all these, the mill workers standing in front of it. Well, tomorrow, Wednesday the 14th at 11:30 in the morning, they're going to recreate that picture with a new flag and obviously new people. And that will take place Wednesday, June 14th at 11:30 in the morning at the Lofts at Mill West, which is located at 195 McGregor Street in West Manchester. I know I'm going to try to get over there with Dan. It'll be interesting. It'll be nice to see, a contrasting picture from the old one. Fun thing to do, obviously. Doesn't cost anything. Great to see some people out in the community coming out for that. Another thing I wanted to mention is now taking place every Thursday is Manchester Community Market, located in Victory Park. You can go buy fresh vegetables, and there's different vendors there, obviously free admission. Every Thursday throughout the summer, starting at 3 p.m. in Victory Park, is the Manchester Community Market. So last weekend, Dan and I, in the heat, because it was like 90 degrees, decided to venture out and check out the Cedar Swamp Preserve, which is a new hiking trail owned by the Nature Conservancy, located on Countryside Boulevard, which is off of Hackett Hill up in Ward 12. Really nice place, great trails. We walked through the rhododendron trail. There's two different loops. There's the woodland loop and the rhododendron loop, and Dan and I opted to take the rhododendron loop, and next year I will make it a point of going in the springtime, because I have never seen such large swaths of rhododendron in my life. I am talking huge, huge amounts of rhododendrons, but unfortunately they were already past their bloom. So we walked. It was nice. I would say the rhododendron trail was relatively easy. There was just one small incline, nothing unbearable. And And I bring this up not only because I want people to be aware that there's a new set of hiking trails right here within the city's boundaries, but also because this coming Saturday, the 17th, the Nature Conservancy is holding its first tech trip. They call it tech trip. Basically, they have an app and they show you how to take photos so that you can learn how to document local species and weather changes and landscape changes and whatnot, and how to go about using technology to do those things here at the Cedar Swamp Preserves. That is Saturday the 17th. That's this coming Saturday at 9 a.m. I believe there is no charge for this. And again, Cedar Swamp Preserve is located on Countryside Boulevard off Hackett Hill Road in West Manchester. You can get more information about this and other events from the Nature Conservancy at nature.org/NH events. So that's a neat thing. It was really nice to see that there's hiking trails right here within the city of Manchester. Definitely worth a trip out. Now, speaking of swamps, because I, always delve into political subject matter. Speaking of swamps, it's like we have one in the city hall in the form of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and I only call it that because that's what it's called. It's not so much. I'm not saying Ted Gatzis is part of the swamp. I'm saying there seems to be a problem with a bunch of our aldermen these days. I don't know how much you've all been paying attention. I mean, I talk about this. Have been talking about things for the last few weeks. There's been numerous articles in the paper, but I'm just sometimes wonder if people are really paying attention because, it's summer and people are busy. First we had Alderman Herbert, make outrageous statements that he thinks that elderly people should be pushed out of their homes so that we could get younger people in there who are more able to pay taxes so that the city can generate more revenue. And, we should have a program to help get the elderly out of their homes. Outrageous, unacceptable. I don't think that's what the people of Ward 4 sent him to City Hall to advocate on their behalf for. Then we had Ward 8 Alderman Tommy Katziantonis get arrested on felony tax evasion charges and, to the tune of $400,000+ in meals and rooms taxes that he collected from his constituents. So he let you pay them every time you bought a pizza or had a beer in one of his restaurants, but then he never turned around and paid them to the state. So it's like he was stealing right directly from his constituents. Totally unacceptable. Not an okay thing. And now today we're brought to another bizarre situation, although I guess it's not that bizarre because they've done it before. This evening, today's Tuesday the 13th, there's a special meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and they are meeting to vote on the city budget. We have a tax and spending cap in the city, and the mayor is required to put forth a budget that's within that cap, and the only way that aldermen can choose to spend more money is by overriding that cap. Well, they've done it before because, they say, oh, it's a one-time thing. Joyce Craig years ago said, oh, we should just override this one time because, we've got to fix this hole and blah, blah, blah. And then, the things that we're supposed to fix to avoid it for the next time never get done. But to make matters worse is there's two fire contracts actually that will be brought up also tonight because the fire unions for the firefighters and the supervisors could not come to an agreement with the city as far as their contract negotiations, and they created an impasse, and then it ended up going to a fact finder, and the fact finder releases his report on the 11th, saying that he recommends that the firefighters get 2 consecutive 3% raises, one in this July and one in next July, that the firefighters get, I believe, $40 in hazard pay this year and $50 in hazard pay next year, and that's per week, I believe. And then also, that adds up quickly. Besides my concern about whether or not Manchester can afford such raises, because I don't think we can, and I'm not really sure why we're having hazard duty pay to firefighters when I don't know what part of firefighting anybody thinks isn't hazardous. So you either take a job that involves hazard or you don't. It's like when teachers are upset that they have to work, with kids or have to correct papers, and then you're surprised because didn't you sign up for that job? But anyways, I digress. Tonight, at this special meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, they'll be asked to vote on to approve this fact-finding report that puts these raises in place and whatever. And there's a problem because our city charter clearly says that if you have a personal financial interest for yourself or your immediate family, that you aren't supposed to be voting on things. So I'm going to read to you what the city charter says. This is section 9.03E. And you can find this information on manchesternh.gov if you want to read it for yourself. But I'm going to read it to you. Conflict of interest. No city official shall participate in the decision-making process of any matter in which the official or a member of the official's immediate family has a direct personal or financial interest. Any official who believes such an interest exists shall disclose such interest and shall not participate in the matter further. That's pretty straightforward English, nothing complicated, not hard to understand. Yet, I will bet you a beer that Alderman Ludwig from Ward 2 and Alderman Norm Gamache from Ward 11 will vote on the fire contract tonight, violating the city's charter. And the reason I think that they'll do this tonight is because 2 years ago they did exactly the same thing and they violated the city charter in 2015. Just to put it into perspective, because, they're going to say, well, this doesn't impact me. But it does. Nobody's going to tell me that somebody isn't looking out for their kid's best interest, and that's why we have a conflict of interest policy in our city charter, because in case these things arise, there should be rules to prohibit you from voting on things that benefit your family directly. So Alderman Ludwig up there in Ward 2, he has two sons, Kurt and Carl, who are both firefighters. Kurt last year in 2016 made $63,250 in salary and $36,160 in benefits for a total of $99,410. His brother Carl made $52,574 in salary and $23,896 in benefits for a total of $76,470. Now, a 3% raise for Kurt is going to be $1,897 a year. Add to that the hazard pay, and you're adding another $2,080 for a total benefit of $3,977 for Ludwig's son Kurt. Now, Carl, his 3% in the first year would be $1,577. Add to it the $2,080 in hazard pay, and he's at $3,657 for the year. Now, keep in mind, the second year, they'll get another 3%, which means they'll get another, close to $2,000 for Kurt and, upwards of $2,000 for Carl. But in the first year alone, this is $7,634 for Team Ludwig that Alderman Ludwig will more than likely vote for, even though the city charter clearly says he can't. Now, Norm Gamache over there in Ward 11, his son Michael, he's the district fire chief. He made, in 2016, $145,839 in salary and $62,609 in benefits. His 3% raise alone would be $4,375 in the first year. How anybody can think that Alderman Ludwig and Alderman Gamache aren't violating the city charter if they vote on this fact-finding report tonight is beyond me. How anybody cannot see this for as clearly as it is. Now, this isn't a new thing for Ludwig and Gamache, though, because in 2015, there was a teacher's contract that came up for a vote. It was a 3-year contract with the city's teachers. Myself and some other taxpayers here in Manchester filed with the court asking for an injunction. We asked the court to permanently restrain aldermen then and in the future from violating the charter's conflict of interest policy. And basically the court said we didn't have any standing, even though the charter says this, because we didn't file a complaint with the conduct board. And there's, this is a whole nother joke. So we have a conduct board. The people on that board might have good intentions, but guess how things get to the conduct board? The aldermen have to vote to send them there. How crazy is that? So if I would want to file a complaint with the conduct board, it goes to the alderman, the same alderman that I'm complaining about, before it gets to the conduct board. So back in 2015, Ludwig's wife Celeste, she was a school teacher, so it was a direct conflict of interest from then. And Gamash's daughter worked for the school system, also a direct conflict of interest. You know, I don't know if the aldermen just think that the people are that naive or that stupid that they don't see what they're doing, or if people are just so complacent that they don't care. But we obviously have an ethically challenged contingency within the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. There are way too many Democrat aldermen that seem to blur the lines on what's right and what's wrong. And some of them aren't even blurring the lines. I mean, some of this stuff is just nuts. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, Democrat Alderman Katziantonis blatantly stealing from his own constituents hundreds of thousands of dollars. Democrat Alderman Ron Ludwig blatantly violating the city charter, not once, but probably twice, benefiting his family personally by voting in favor of certain union contracts. Democrat Alderman Norm Gamache also violating the city charter by voting to benefit his family financially to the tune of $10,000 a year, with no regard for how this impacts the taxpayers in Ward 11. And also Democrat Alderman Chris Herbert, whose ideas are just insane. I mean, anybody who thinks that elderly should be pushed out of their homes so that the city can get more revenue so that they can spend more money should not be serving in an elected official capacity. And what's even worse is their Democratic colleagues don't seem to either care or won't say anything about it. They are definitely putting their party in front of simple principles. I have not seen one Democrat come out against any of these Democratic aldermen and call them on the carpet for their actions. Nobody's called for Katziantonis to resign. Nobody's called for Chris Herbert to just stop. And I will bet you a beer that nobody will challenge Ludwig or Gamache tonight. There will not be a Democrat alderman on that board who say that you shouldn't be voting on this contract because the city charter clearly says you have a conflict of interest. It's just outrageous that this is being tolerated in City Hall and by the voters here in Manchester. People say, well, what's the recourse? If the conduct committee can't resolve it, what is the recourse? The only recourse there really, really is to vote in people with principles in November. There are plenty of good people in Manchester who could do a far better job than those that are either stealing from their constituents or violating the city charter or, proposing to harm elderly in any way. It's just nuts. You really all need to start paying closer attention to who you're electing and what they stand for and whether or not they're going to do the right thing when they're called to do so. Lastly, I wanted to talk, lastly on the political thing. Rest assured, the only problems we have are not only in city government with the aldermen. The State House is still... they're still trying to craft a budget up in Concord. We still don't have a budget that's been passed. For those of you who may have missed it, the House, for the first time, and I don't know when, failed to pass a budget because the budget that was brought forth to the House floor for a vote had spending increases that exceeded the rate of inflation, and there were many Republicans, and by many I mean many, not like 6, but like 60, who were not comfortable in voting for a budget that exceeded the rate of inflation. So it went over to the Senate, and the Senate came up with a version. They sent it over to the House, and the House didn't accept that. So then what happens is you have this thing called a committee of conference, and they take a couple people from the House and a couple people from the Senate, and they sit together and they work out the details and try to figure out where they can come to some sort of compromise. Now, if they can't compromise on a budget that can pass, we'll default back to the current budget, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I know there were a lot of good things that were being proposed in the budget, one of which was reduction in business taxes. So if we fail to pass a budget, we won't see that happen. But what made me got the hair on the back of my neck to stand up a little bit is I saw a post come out from Americans for Prosperity, and they're claiming that Speaker Jasper is opposing the business tax cuts that the Senate are proposing. And I'm going to read you this little press release just because I want to make sure I get it all right. It says, the New Hampshire House of Representatives failed to pass a budget for the first time in recorded history. The Senate already passed a budget, which includes expansion of tax relief for employers that began in 2015. Despite the failure of House leadership to pass a budget and the House having no position on the state budget, the House did not approve the Senate's budget. Now both chambers will work out the budget differences in a committee of conference. Speaker Jasper immediately told his Senate counterparts that he would be opposing the Senate's position of reducing business taxes. The Republican Speaker of the House opposes reducing business taxes. You really can't make this up. The Americans for Prosperity is saying you should call Speaker Jasper and let him know how you feel. His phone number is 603-595-9621. There you go. So it's not just Manchester. It seems to be politics in general. Yeah, we've got a mess on our hands. We've got to start reining in spending. I hate to keep saying that over and over again, but people talk about revenues, people talk about taxes. We need to talk about spending more. We keep spending more and more and more and more, whether we need it or not, and it becomes so commonplace that nobody even thinks anything of increasing spending in the city. It's just nuts. So, if you're interested in trying to make change in the city of Manchester or in the state, and you would like to get more involved with the Manchester Republican Committee, our next meeting is on Monday, July 10th at 6 p.m. at Murphy's Tap Room. Keith Murphy's a state rep from Bedford, used to live here in Manchester. He's very generous with the space, lets us have our meetings there. If you ever need to stop someplace and have dinner, Dan loves the mussels. They've got these great ricotta roll-ups, all sorts of good food, and they have an amazing diner. But anyways, the meeting for the Manchester GOP is on Monday, July 10th, 6 p.m. at Murphy's Tap Room. If you think it's outrageous that we have aldermen that are violating the city charter, if you think it's outrageous that the House Speaker opposes tax cuts for businesses, come on out, meet us, meet some like-minded people in Manchester, and get involved in the committee locally and help us make some changes. We have a fundraiser coming up in August. It's a great time. It's a great fundraiser. No speakers. It is held at Casey's Rib Shack out on their Tiki Bar. It is the 5th annual Manchester GOP Tiki fundraiser. You can find information on that by searching on Facebook or on Eventbrite. Tickets, if you're buying them right now, are $40. By the time the event rolls around, they'll be $50. So if you buy early, you get a better price. It includes, a great spread of food and whatnot, and the funds go to help elect people who won't violate your city charter this fall. That's all I really have for this week. You can always email me at ManchTalk@gmail.com, and I'd love to hear from people. I'd love to hear suggestions or feedback, or you can tell me that you think my show is terrible, whatever. Just email me. You can also follow me on Facebook or on Twitter at ManchTalk. I look forward to the temperatures dropping tomorrow and having a great week. I do not look forward to watching the aldermanic meeting tonight and seeing 2 of our aldermen violate the city charter again. Please, I look forward to next week's show, and I hope you check me out then. Until then, have a safe weekend and enjoy this wonderful weather. Bye-bye.